Per usual, everything else channels for educational purposes only and is not intended as financial advice. It's Teaching Tech Tuesday, and as we approach this potential monumental monster trade here on BTC that we typically only see roughly once a quarter, as an analyst, I need to flag that and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is the possibility here. Like I said in the opening, none of this is financial advice. I don't care what other people do with their money. I'm just telling you what I'm doing with my money and how I'm thinking about what's going on here. For BTC specifically, I covered a lot of this in the Setup Sunday video, but we continue to consolidate at all-time highs. And it's important to have your ducks in a row here, ready to go. You don't want to be the person who messages somebody when we start breaking out and say, is there news? No, the news is we've been in a low volatility environment for a couple months at all-time highs. And you can throw any Bitcoin treasury narrative or whatever at me. The TA doesn't care. The TA sees price. It sees human behavior. So I want to talk about how I'm thinking about this individually as a position as well as a portfolio wide, how to best think about tackling this. Because when crypto moves, nothing else really matters. And that's an important part here. When crypto is doing nothing, people go to Forex, people go to equities, people go to biotech, semis, whatever, right? They do all sorts of stuff. I think some people have trouble coming back home to crypto and taking it seriously, positioning wise, portfolio wide positioning, not just individual positioning. And people also have the opposite problem where they try to squeeze blood from a stone when there's nothing to do, right? So you definitely want to have your ears tuned up to when it's go time and when it's not. And this could be wrong. All this analysis could be wrong. Looking at the cloud here, we have a bearish TK cross, so I'm overriding what the cloud is saying. But if we do break up, we will get a bullish TK recross. So I'll get to the portfolio positioning in a minute, but just looking at BTC, how I like to think about this here as a trade individually, I think a majority of, again, this is just an example, nothing to take seriously as advice, but it's just what I'm doing. Majority of the portfolio sitting in BTC if it looks good, and alts just as a category bucket if they look good. The percentage of ETH versus BTC here is going to be very different from person to person. You're going to have the ETH people who have been sitting in ETH for 5 years and are down whatever percent in ETH BTC. You're going to have the realistic trading people, which is where I like to hope that I am, where I'm like, yeah, realistically, we could see a move here on ETH BTC. It makes sense to own some BTC. Ultimately, we will know once BTC breaks up how much ETH BTC can really crank, right? If it just lags again, then that's not a great trade because you're going to continue to lose in BTC ultimate terms. So if we're in this pre-breakout staging area, we're on the launch pad, you certainly, I wouldn't think, want to be all cash unless you're ready to go full account, full port at 110. That's really the breakout level. Now, could this be a fake out breakout? Sure. We could break up, we could break down. Anything's always possible. We're talking about probabilities here. This, to me, looks like a high probability setup in the moment. So assuming all goes right, probably within the month, I'd imagine, we'll start to get a move higher. And the question is, of course, what do you want to do? Anything at all? Are you positioned perfectly today? Are you ready to add at higher highs? I like to see 110 in this case at a daily close. 109 will take as well, 109.5. Whatever helps you sleep at night in a high conviction bucket to say, all right, it's good enough. For a lot of people, for most people, it's been good enough for a while, as in months, it's been good enough to just say, I'm all in. So beyond the breakout, if we think about this, adding to a position for whatever reason, maybe you have other positions you're taking profit on, maybe you're waiting for more confirmation above 110, fine. Williams fractals are the way to go. I've talked about those a billion times. I'm not going to discuss that again. But anytime you're getting a higher high on the Williams fractal, you're good to go. Trailing stop loss, same thing. Williams fractal, any lower low, great time to cut a position, partially or completely. I typically cut it completely if it's a Williams fractal breach on the daily close. Now, before the breakout, thanks to TA, we have a target already in mind. A lot of this stuff we just sort of take for granted, and I don't deeply explain every time I see anything, but we have a range. We're expecting a range expansion. We're expecting a move to the measured target, which is based on the depth of the range, which is 140 to 160. The number in and of itself is irrelevant because it's based on the depth of what we're seeing on the chart. So for any given chart, it's going to be any number, right? Okay, for this specific thing that many of us are intimately involved with and have been for a decade, whatever, right? Like, it's a big deal to us, but to the chart doesn't care. So in your head, just because I'm mapping this out the way I am, doesn't mean people are going to agree with me, but where are you going to add? Where are you going to add after that, if ever? Are you going to be fully in or not? And then what is your stop loss going to be? What is your target going to be? Entry, exit, stop loss on everything. Also, you need a fail-safe position. Be prepared. If this breaks down, where are you going to do anything? Where are you going to take action, if at all? Are you going to take action at 105, which is a lower low? Are you going to take action at 100 if we break into the cloud? It's possible we get another dip sub 100 and we bounce, and randomly, like, the cloud just like gets screwed up and doesn't know what it's talking about, and we can draw this out if we if we go like this and then we go like this and then I don't know, and then we break up in Q4 or something, right? All of that is possible, but I cannot get bearish at all-time highs. I can't get bearish when we're consolidating up here, and this could be wrong, but every time I see this, I know what to do. I'm ready. It's fully ready. I'm not going to be disappointed with myself position sizing wise if this breaks out. I will be ready to go. Everything fully planned out. Now, let's say it doesn't go to 140 or it doesn't go to 160, right? We have a trailing stop loss. Let's say it goes beyond that. Maybe we're taking partial profit in the 140 to 160s, but that's really a game time decision once we get there. Maybe we get a parabolic move here and then we reconsolidate. Maybe we get a slow creep up and we just draw some sort of rising wedge. Maybe we get a head and shoulders, maybe, right? We don't know. We don't know what we're going to get, but just ahead of time, this is what I'm expecting. So you have this for BTC, and people are obviously wondering, okay, what would leverage look like on this position? What is in the investable universe for leverage? Well, you've got miners, you've got MSTR, you've got MSTU, you've got meme coins, which trade like MSTU, so that's 4x BTC. You've got SOL, you've got ETH, right? So depending on how people are sitting, if we think about individual portfolios, I think a lot of people think that they are in this low volatility portfolio or something, right? Where they're like high conviction. I think this is where most people think they are at, when in reality, they're closer to this, which is just super highly speculative, super highly volatile, which is fine if that's what you are comfortable with. I don't know if that's necessarily the best bet in the long run. We're talking about MSTR options. We're talking about full portfolio of meme coins and quantum computing stuff and GME. That seems a little much to me, but hey, that's just one person's opinion. I think an even higher percentage of people are probably in one of these two buckets where they have a mix of stuff, right? They have a mix of either high conviction or high speculative, high volatility type stuff. And if we're pre-breakout, if we think, if we think we're going to 150, then I would tend to lean toward high speculative as a favorable time. Like, if you're going to choose the time, it feels like now's the time to be positioned for that. You don't want to be in highly speculative full portfolio when we're chopping around and doing nothing and you're getting volatility drag and you're getting theta decay and whatever else, right, on options. That's not the time. The time, in my opinion, to be more highly speculative is when you think we are pre-breakout or trending pre-trend, which is where I think we're at today. And then I think there's a mix of people, and I see a couple of these on YouTube channels I watch content-wise. One individual in particular I'm thinking about who has this sort of portfolio, and I just don't understand. Again, this is individual, so I get it, but having a cash yield bucket of 25% in this case, or 30%, that seems excessive to me. Again, if you think we're getting this, it doesn't make sense to me to be in that much cash. Yeah, maybe up here. Again, this is just my opinion, right? We're just talking about things, but I just feel like this is why you're here. You're here because you want to be a part of crazy volatility, which for Bitcoin has quieted down a lot. But I don't think the time to be in cash here to that degree seems excessive to me. But it depends on your risk tolerance, your time horizon, that sort of thing. So if I'm thinking about whole portfolio here, as we break out, maybe I am fully positioned in BTC or whatever else. And as we break 110, maybe I don't add to BTC, but you add to this highly speculative bucket. You say, okay, I want meme coins, I want MSTU, I want BITU, I want leverage, margin, credit, whatever, right? Give me it all. I'm ready to go at some levering degree beyond 110. And then maybe as we approach 150, you have this transition period where you say, okay, I'm going to start to take partial profit. I'm going to start to get out of these meme coin positions depending on how they look. This is all, of course, before things are happening. But again, we're planning this out. What could this look like? What might this be generally? And there are some people when, as we approach 150, they're going to want to lever up more in non-BTC instruments because we could see a rotation, right? It just depends on what your own personal decision-making process is there, but it's a good idea to have that in mind because you really don't want to miss whatever could be happening here. And if we think about it entirely as a whole, like I don't not like any of this stuff here at this point because again, we're pre-breakout. I think leveraged Coinbase is probably not where you want to be. I don't think coin, just because it's moved already, right? Miners also to a lesser degree. Some of them have moved, some of them haven't. Alts, I would look at the alts that are ready to go, not the alts that are at zero and that are ultra laggards. It's where people in this bucket, they like to look at the alts that are at zero and just assume that they're going to pull up, which, hey, it's possible, but maybe you don't want that in your entire portfolio. Maybe you don't want your entire portfolio to be zombie alts in the hopes that they break up. Maybe you look at a list of 10 and you say, okay, I like these 3 and I'm going to limit myself to X percentage of total portfolio based on this highly speculative bucket. And maybe I'll add after blah, 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 right? For some people, this is already too much. They're very low touch. They just DCA BTC. They just long BTC. That's fine. But for a long time here, we were stuck in the Bitcoin only mode for me. And that has definitely shifted as we're starting to see some of this expand. And if we map out ETH real quick, if we just take fibs, the first fib I would pull would be here, and the second would be this high to this low. That's realistically where I keep saying you'd want this to go. So I don't think we're going to have any trouble breaking 34 to 38 if and when we break up here. I think the bigger level is up here. But as things are quiet now, you want to get ready for that. Maybe you are positioning heavier into ETH here, and a lot of people that are, based on what ETH BTC looks like, based on this sort of catch-up trade idea for ETH. All the same rules apply. You don't want lower lows pre-breakout. You want to probably be adding on the breakout or dollar cost averaging here, assuming a breakout. Maybe you have some high leverage trade that you're taking partial profit at 36 and you're holding in hopes of above 4, right? But I would map all this out and think about it, write it down, spreadsheet it out, whatever. Just, it doesn't have to be extensive, but I would have some idea on where you think this stuff could go. Sol, last one here we'll look at, hasn't really broken out yet, hasn't done anything. We talked about this before with Sol in October. Pre-positioning into Sol doesn't quite make sense here, especially when you look at the Sol ETH chart, which continues to favor ETH, even though I thought it would bounce there on Sol. And if we look at ETH BTC, again, this is the time to shoot your shot. You see her across the room, you give her a smile, you shoot your shot. We're peaking above the cloud. That's what you like to see. So I would quickly audit and assess what you're trading collectively. And if everything is trading similar together, maybe you want to diversify that a little bit, right? This is just an example. Coin versus the mining ETF WGMI versus ETH versus IWM. You probably don't want a portfolio of these 4 together because they move together. If you caught coin, maybe you rotate a little bit into ETH here. I think a lot of people have been doing that already. But if you're bulled up on ETH, you're probably not adding a bunch of coin to your portfolio, is my guess. Obviously, percentages and targets are going to be different here, but it's something to think about. And one that's a little less compelling, but I think also there, if we think about, again, the types of people who trade the quantum stuff and the memes, we've got Rigetti, Solana, Rocket Lab, MSTR, SMCI. Sol there lagging a lot. Rocket Lab on the breakout. So it really depends on what you like here, right? Some people are going to think Solana has a much higher upside than the rest of this stuff on this chart. The MSTR people are going to tell you that they think MSTR is going to 1,000. They don't want to mess with Solana. But you probably don't want your entire portfolio comprised of these 2 buckets, right? Maybe you want a little bit to break the correlations, and that's where the cash bucket comes in. But back to the opening, like I said, I think people are sort of broadened out on what they're looking at a lot because crypto hasn't done anything. And I think now's the time to get some discipline and hone in on a key list of stuff for you that you like, whether that's meme coins or Sol ecosystem, DeFi, ETH ecosystem, whatever, right? Bitcoin miners, MSTR, MSTU, et cetera, et cetera. Because it certainly feels to me like we are getting very close, and we will continue to monitor what my opinion is on this channel. That's why this channel exists. So that's all I have for this one today. Give me a like, dislike, comment, share, subscribe, and happy trading.